So unless we can actually realize what giving and receiving is, to truly see that you only give to yourself, that there is only one. Until that happens, we can't really accept the atonement. But when we do, through experience, through the experience of giving and the experience of receiving back exactly at least the amount that you gave in quality and quantity, through that experience you begin to realize the truth of what it is that's happening, that you're only ever giving to yourself. And in that understanding, in that deep understanding and realization, you also see that what you have is what you are. So that having and being are seen as one. So giving and receiving and having and being and living and loving are all the same. That's the acceptance of the atonement. That's the acceptance and the experience of oneness. And it's the realization that you are a being. Strangely, it's not so much in the giving, but in the receiving that we come to that realization. Because we're receiving everything all the time. We're giving everything all the time. But we're not only giving what is true, which is what we are, which is love. We're giving other things too, right? That's our mistake. And we're receiving that. But when we learn to receive everything unconditionally, when we learn to receive in a way that is true everything that is false, then we discover that under the pressure of receiving that which is false, we discover true beingness. We're no longer fighting to select what it is that we want from life. We're taking everything and receiving it. This is what forgiveness is. It's the non-rejection of everything that you put out there. You see, it's all really just about accepting yourself. It sounds simple to accept yourself, but that's all it is. But you see, what we do is, in a passive sort of way, is we refuse to accept ourselves. There's an experience that takes place in human thinking and human experience that is a non-acceptance. And it's a passive affair, and it comes from a suggestion that there's something wrong, that there's a lacking. And it's just a suggestion. It's a strong suggestion. It comes from collective consciousness and can be quite convincing, but it's just a suggestion. It's an illusion. But if we agree with the illusion, then we reinforce that suggestion. Ooh. And what we do to agree with it, we say, yes, I'm lacking, there's something missing, I'm wanting something, and so I need. And then we create in ourselves an energy of neediness. And to supply that need, we want something. Need begets want. And that wanting goes into the mind, into thought, and manifests in form as something that is required to give us what it is that we think we need to overcome that lack. And so we strengthen that sense of lack. It's like a circular thing. It goes round and round. The more we need something, the more we try to get something, and we bring into a force this getting principle, which drives us. And all we do is spend our lives at striving to attain and to achieve something that will allow us to feel okay inside, to be free from this sense of lack. And that's a passive acceptance of a suggestion that isn't true. But ego isn't content with that. Ego isn't content with your passive non-acceptance. It wants your active rejection. You've been warned. It wants your active rejection, and the way that it brings that about is that it uses the mind to evaluate life, to what is happening, assimilating what it is that's going on, in order to discover what it needs or what it can use. It makes a use out of life. This is an active rejection, because when it finds something that it wants to use to supply this need, this illusionary need, it rejects everything else. Because life is whole and one. But when we choose what it is that we want from it, we reject it. It's a very categorical statement in the Course in Miracles. It says your judgment is rejection. Because when you judge, when you assimilate and you rationalize life, and you choose what it is that you want from life that will make you feel okay inside, something on the outside that will give you something on the inside which is impossible, then you reject life. And in rejecting life, you reject your mind, you reject yourself, you reject wholeness, you reject reality, and you reject God. And what all that does is makes you feel guilty. You see, the Course says that we're attracted to guilt. That's the human condition, we're attracted to guilt. But we're not really attracted to guilt itself. It would be insane, wouldn't it, to be attracted to guilt? Because guilt makes us feel uncomfortable, and it produces pain, doesn't it? And separation and discord and all the rest. But what we're attracted to is what we can get, right? That is guilt-ridden. What we can get, but because we're trying to get something to give us something that we don't need. We don't need anything because we're complete and whole as God created us. And the rejection of that is the rejection of God himself, and that's why we feel guilty. And that is an ongoing, not just a passive accept or non-acceptance, but an actual rejection of life, an actual rejection of what we are. And that continues until you reach a point where the discomfort and the pain and the discord in your life becomes so unacceptable that you realize there must be a better way than this. Now, that's the good news is that God created us with a pain threshold. And we're only allowed to go so far before we realize it's not working. We call this the beginning of the spiritual path, right? Or the awakening, where we realize it's not working. So, because we're attracted to guilt, we have to find something that is an alternative to that attraction that will take us away from guilt. And the alternative is peace. Because in spite of the fact that we're attracted to guilt or the things that create guilt, we are also attracted to peace. And so we begin a process or a development of attaining peace within. And this is the motivation that is required for us to come to a realization of what we truly are. And this motivation gains ground. It's cumulative. The more peace we experience, the more peace we want. But at the same time that we experience peace And we gain ground on that experience because there's a pull to have more. We discover a heightened sensitivity to the guilt we experience. So it's the carrot and stick effect. The more we want peace, the more we feel the pain of guilt. And this is why awakening can be very uncomfortable. And then we come to another stage of motivation where we discover there's more to peace than just a quiet mind, just peace of mind, or just a respite from the pain and the discomfort of guilt. What we discover is that peace has gifts to offer us. It's like a door that you go through into everything. As you begin to go deeper because of that pull into an inner contentment of your own being, you begin to discover what it is that you really are. And it may be very, very small. Just a tiny little bit of what you actually are, which is love.
Oh, yes.
And the gifts that arise out of that are spontaneous experiences of joy and harmony in form in your life. And happiness in your relationships and many other things. But these are moments, gifts that gives you more and more motivation to awaken, to find the very core of this, to discover what you really are. And this is the final level of motivation, not just to receive the gifts, but to be that, to be what you really are as a being, to know the oneness and experience it. You can only enter into your own being by way of relaxing. You can only enter into your own being by actually resting. Allowing yourself to recognize that you really need nothing, that you are complete. And that resting is a contentment of being. And that contentment of being is born from a satisfaction that you have what you need. It's very difficult to bring about contentment through intention. I know I've tried over years to do it. And it can't be done because the very intention itself is contrary to what contentment is, which is a freedom from all intention. Right? But what you can intend to do is be satisfied with what you have and what you are. And then, when you're satisfied, contentment arrives and fills you. And then you're resting, because you're no longer striving in your mind to attain. Striving in your mind to find the something that will give you satisfaction and fulfill that and fill that gap. I rest in God completely undismayed. The undismayed means undeceived, unfooled. unfooled, undeceived by the thoughts, that the thoughts will get you something. See, thoughts are really just forms of the getting principle, to acquire. And we put so much trust in thought, and it doesn't get us anything. We can't enter into being through thought. We can't enter into the awareness of God by the mind. Only through the heart at rest, free from wanting. So we become undeceived, we become undismayed by thoughts and feelings, and in that there's rest and a deepening within into being. I rest in God completely undismayed. This thought or this experience will take me past storms and strife and onward to the certainty of God. The storms are what it is that we put out there. These are the pressures of life. As we become more sensitive, we realize that these pressures are unlimited. There are thousands of layers of these pressures that all bear down on us. And when we begin to awaken, when we decide to go home, these pressures call upon us, pull at us, torture us. Because we've given them life. And they want to survive. And they can only survive with power that we give them. And we give them that power when we resist them. We give them that energy when we decide to escape from them, or to control them, or to undo them, or resist them in any way at all. These pressures come from far and wide. They're in the world, in the problems of the world, the wars, the famines, the displacements. They're in our society, our government, our neighbourhood, our friends, our families, children, parents, husbands and wives. But close of all, they're in ourselves, in our patterns, in our memories, in our belief systems, in all our conditioning. And we've given them life. So they pull, they tear at us. Give me life. But in the core, in the center of these pressures, there's a nucleus, which is real, because that's what we put out, that's what we projected. That nucleus is the eye of the storm. And as you know, there's peace, stillness in the eye of the storm. And in the nucleus of all of these pressures, there's an essence of what it is that you actually are. And when you meet this essence, you find nectar, nurture. You find your own being. But what is required to meet it is your willingness to be in the pressure without resistance, to remain totally and completely defenseless, unprotected, matching them, meeting them, merging with them, accepting them fully, absorbing them in defenselessness. Each of these pressures has a little tiny label. Forgiveness. That's what they really want, your forgiveness. And you become a blotting paper for guilt. And you give no credence to the thoughts while these pressures are there. These thoughts that are going up into your mind and seeking to mine for fool's gold, but only to your heart. Remembering the peace of God within you. And allowing that pressure to move through, move in, and move through, and open you. Open your heart. And allow you to discover that all of those pressures represent the identification with the body, with the physical form. And that in relinquishing that lie, that deception, that projection, you discover that they awaken you to your real body, the body of Christ. And you know that as a living experience. And that's home. That's how you come home. And that is your purpose. And your function is forgiveness. It's not easy. But then living in guilt is not easy. Living in fear is not easy. Living in a human body and dying is not easy. So this is the way home. This is the way out. So happy Christmas. Sorry, I didn't record all that. Never mind. Good. Bless you. So, sorry about this. I wanted to read this lesson. I rest in God. It's so profound. This is to me just the most beautiful lesson in the course, and it really does, if you allow it, read this lesson, the beginning of your quiet time. It will take you really deep. We ask for rest today and quietness unshaken by the world's appearances. We ask for peace and stillness in the midst of all the turmoil born of clashing dreams. We ask for safety and for happiness, although we seem to look on danger and on sorrow. And we have the thought that will answer our asking with what we request. I rest in God. This thought will bring you the rest and quiet, the peace and stillness and the safety and the happiness you seek. I rest in God. This thought has power to wake the sleeping truth in you, whose vision sees beyond the appearances to the same truth in everyone and everything there is. Here is the end of suffering for all the world and everyone who ever came and yet will come to linger for a while. You know, when you read things like this, it is so profound to imagine that you can heal the world. It seems that this is something alien to everything that you've ever understood and believed. And it is. As a human being, of course, you cannot do that. But as the Holy Son of God, you can and you will, because that's what you are. And it's in this resting in God and letting go of the illusions, forgiving the world, that you come to that. And it's real. Make no mistake about it. This is not just a fairy story. It's very real.
Hey!
You need that experience. You need the experience of being the Holy Son of God, being the Christ. But when you have that experience, then you know that every word in this course is true.
Yes.
Here is the thought in which the Son of God is born again to recognize himself. I rest in God completely undismayed. This thought will carry you through storms and strife and past misery and pain, past loss and death, and onward to the certainty of God. There is no suffering it cannot heal. There is no problem that it cannot solve, and no appearance that will not turn to truth before the eyes of him who rests in God. This is the day of peace. You rest in God, and while the world is torn by winds of hate, your rest remains completely undisturbed. Yours is the rest of truth. Appearances cannot intrude on you. You call to all to join you in your rest, and they will hear and come to you because you rest in God. They will not hear another voice than yours because you gave your voice to God, and now you rest in him and let him speak through you. To him and in him you have no cares, no concerns, no burdens, no anxiety, no pain, no fear of future, and no past regrets. In other words, no guilt. In timelessness you rest, while time goes by without its touch upon you, for your rest can never change in any way at all. You rest today, and as you close your eyes and sink into stillness, let these periods of rest and respite reassure your mind that all its frantic fantasies were but the dreams of fever that have passed away. Let it be still and thankfully accept its healing. No more fearful dreams will come. Now you rest in God. Take time today to slip away from dreams and into peace. Each hour that you take your rest today, I love this. A tired mind is suddenly made glad. You see, this is the wonder, this is the real miracle. When you realize that everything that is happening, facing these pressures, going through your crucifixion and your resurrection, and actually allowing yourself to be completely defenseless against your own attack brings about a realization of truth, not just in you, but in everybody around you. What a responsibility. Not a heavy burden, but a joyous responsibility.
Yes.
Each hour that you take your rest today, a tired mind is suddenly made glad. A bird with broken wings begins to sing. A stream long dry begins to flow again. The world is born again each time.
I like the easy ones.
Oh, there's one more here. The world is born again each time you rest. Now remember that you came to bring the peace of God into the world, that it might take its rest along with you. With each 5 minutes that you rest today, the world is near awaking, and the time when rest will be the only thing there is comes closer to all worn and tired minds, too weary now to go their way alone. And they will hear the bird begin to sing, and see the stream begin to flow again, with hope reborn and energy restored to walk with lightened steps along the road that suddenly seems as easy as they go. You rest within the peace of God today and call upon your brothers from your rest to draw them to your rest along with you. You will be faithful to your rest today, to your trust today, forgetting no one, bringing everyone into the boundless circle of your peace and the holy sanctuary where you rest. Open the temple doors and let them come from far across the world and near as well. Your distant brothers and your closest friends. Bid them all enter here and rest with you. Your rest within the peace of God today, quiet and unafraid, will bring each brother closer to his rest and offer it to you. We rest together here, for thus our rest is made complete, and what we give today we have received already. Remember, time is but an illusion. We're already home. All we're doing is reviewing the way it happened, looking back. How could it be otherwise when time is an illusion? We give to those unborn and those passed by, to every thought of God and to the mind in which these thoughts were born and where they rest. And we remind them of their resting place each time we tell ourselves, I rest in God. Amen.
There's another box over there somewhere.
Commissions in tissue.